I'm awfully worried, Roxie.
You're worried? Listen, my lawyer goes out of town on a vacation. My agent, whenever you want him, you can't find him.
It's not that. Did you see that editorial in the Ledger this morning?
About me?
It said, why is it that men could be hanged in this county, but not women? It was called, We Demand Equal Rights for Women.
Say, that's swell.
Roxie, please, this is serious. This case isn't going to be like the others. Everybody is getting sore. The mayor, the newspapers, the preachers, the women's clubs, everybody. It never was like that before.
You're sweet.
Don't you understand? They're going to try to make you pay the penalty.
I never thought of anybody really worrying about me before.
Chicago is a musical play based on the real-life story of Beulah Annan, a married woman who killed her lover after a 2-month sexual affair, and her eyes lit up with joy every time the papers wrote about her. The following audio clips you are about to hear are jail phone calls between this young woman, Mackenzie Shirilla, and a friend of hers, and then 2 clips of calls with her and her mother, Natalie Shirilla. At the time of these calls, Mackenzie was in jail after being arrested for killing her boyfriend, Dominic Russo, and his friend, Davion Flanagan, in this absolutely horrific car crash. One point of this story is that both of these women I'm going to discuss, Beulah Annan in 1924 and Mackenzie Shirilla today, were only interested in fame after killing people. Take a listen.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could just really talk to you right now, but I'm scared to ask questions.
Ask my mom, she will tell you everything. She knows the answer to everything.
So Monday, you're gonna be finding out?
Yeah, if I'm guilty or not. But I'm gonna be on the news again, so you will see too.
Holy shit.
Monday at 1 o'clock, I'll be probably on the news again.
Why are they so obsessed with you? You got in a fucking car accident. I've gotten in 3 of those.
Your story is everywhere.
What does that mean?
I think it's on national news. It's everywhere.
Why do you think?
Because I can see it. It's everywhere.
Right now? Well, is it, you're acting like it's bad? What are they just saying? Who is posting about it? Fox or something? Not Fox, Today Show and shit like that?
Not yet. Not them yet. But
who posted it then?
I think it's in New York. Somebody saw it in Virginia or something.
You should make a Facebook page, a Facebook group where it's Free Kenzie and stuff like that. So wait, it's all over the world now that Today Show is national news?
Okay, I gotta tell you one more thing.
What?
It was published in England.
What?
Yes.
It's world news?
I think the Daily Mail just publishes it in all their publications, but yeah, the UK.
It's on the Daily Mail?
In UK.
Maybe Kim Kardashian will reach out herself.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping. We're getting there. I was going to do this anyway, so this is great.
And they could just reach out to us.
Mm-hmm. Craziness, baby girl.
Before we get into today's story, let's talk about the way the world worked in 1924. If you were young and you were beautiful and you were standing in front of an all-male jury in Chicago, the rules were different for you. And I mean that literally, not figuratively, not as a commentary, as a documented, reported, openly acknowledged fact that the newspapers of the time said out loud and without embarrassment. And you're about to meet a woman who understood that better than anyone, and she used it and worked it, and then it destroyed her anyway. Her name is Beulah Annan, and right now, in 2026, there are people on the internet saying that a young woman named Mackenzie Shirilla is too pretty to be in prison. Mackenzie drove a car at 100 miles per hour into a brick wall and killed 2 people. Her boyfriend, who seemed like he wanted out of their volatile relationship, Dominic Russo, and his close friend, Davion Flanagan. Judge Nancy Margaret Russo presided over the trial. She, coincidentally, has the same last name as one of the crash victims, Dominic Russo, but she's in no way related to him. That hasn't stopped Mackenzie's father, who appears to be delusional and halfway out of his mind, from making claims that somehow the judge is connected to the deceased victim and his family.
Nancy Margaret Russo, who shares the same last name as
but they're not related. Steve, they're not related.
They're not blood related. There's a relationship. My understanding is that Christine Russo is in her court all the time. They have a working relationship. The Russo family's big. This is a fix.
Nevertheless, the judge looked Mackenzie in the face and sent her away for 15 years to life. But the pretty girl defense is still being argued on TikTok and in some YouTube video comments sections, like it is a legitimate legal strategy. Mackenzie's too pretty for prison. We gotta get our girl out of there. Now, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Kenzie's supporters say she looks too good to be locked up, while others online say that she looks like Mr. Bean. You can decide that for yourself. But for today's story, just know that this argument about being too beautiful to be behind bars wasn't invented in 2026. It's not even a new argument from this century. In 1924, an all-male jury looked at Beulah Annan and decided that a woman that beautiful could not possibly be a cold-blooded killer. They were wrong. And this is her story. Beulah May Sheriff is born in 1899 in Owensboro, Kentucky. Her father is John Sheriff. Her mother is Mary Neal. They are ordinary people from an ordinary town. And Beulah is going to spend her entire short life running away from the ordinary. Her first attempt at escape is a man named Perry Stevens, a newspaper linotype operator from Glenville, Kentucky. She marries him, and it does not take. The details of that marriage are thin in the record, but what the record does show is that Beulah divorces Perry Stevens and moves to Chicago, leaving behind her husband and her son. She didn't just get married, she created a new family and runs away from it because her husband and child are too boring for her. And Chicago in the early 1920s is the place to go when you want to become someone else. It is a fast city, and that is just the life that Beulah wants. In March of 1920, she marries Albert Annan. Al is a mechanic. He's steady and devoted, and by every account, a genuinely good man who is completely outmatched by the woman he has just married. But Al doesn't know that yet. And for a few years, he and Beulah build a life together on the south side of Chicago. By 1924, Beulah is working as a bookkeeper at the Tenant Laundry. She is 24 years old, and every newspaper that will eventually cover her story agrees on one thing. She is the most beautiful woman in whatever room she walks into. Auburn curls, wide blue eyes, a face that the Chicago Tribune will describe as flower-like. But unfortunately for her, she is also bored, and she has found something at work that is more interesting than Al. Or shall I say, someone. His name is Harry Kalstedt. He is 29 years old, a farmer's son from the south side, and he wants to have fun with Beulah, and she wants to have fun with him. And I don't mean by playing Monopoly. I'm talking about a full-blown sexual affair. And that is just what they decide to do. They have passionate, secret nights for about 2 months. Then, everything falls apart. On the morning of April 3rd, 1924, Al Annan goes to work. Harry Kalstedt comes over to the apartment that Al shares with Beulah at 817 East 46th Street. What passes between them in that apartment? Only one person ever knows. And she will give 4 different versions of whatever it is before the year is out. What the record shows is this. At some point in the afternoon, Beulah shoots Harry. Now, Just briefly, I want to go back to Mackenzie Shirilla's story because this is a detail both stories have in common. The only one who has the ability to tell the truth about what happened in each of these stories is the surviving pretty woman. If you're familiar with Shirilla's case and you hear more similarities as I go, please point them out in the comments. I've noticed a few as I was preparing to tell you this story. Now, back to Beulah. Remember, she just shot Harry. She doesn't call the police. She doesn't call a doctor. She puts a foxtrot record called Hula Lou on the phonograph and she lets it play on repeat. She pours herself a drink and she sits in the apartment while Harry Kalstedt lies on her floor and dies. This takes 4 hours. When Harry is finally dead, she goes on for a couple more hours, kissing his lips, and then she picks up the telephone and calls her husband at work. She tells Al plainly, "I've killed a man." Al rushes home. He finds Harry's body huddled in the corner of the room. His wife is sitting there, admittedly drunk, the phonograph still playing. The scene is totally unexpected to Al, but he doesn't freeze in the moment. He calls the police, and he tries to take the blame himself. When the detectives arrive, they find Beulah sitting in the apartment, just calmly waiting. She's ready to talk. Her first statement to the police is a confession. "I shot him." That's what she says. She's hazy on the details of the quarrel, she says, but she shot him. She knows that much for sure. But that version of her story doesn't even last through the night. By the time the newspapers get a hold of the story on April 4th, Beulah has already begun to revise. Now she tells the investigators that Harry came to her apartment that afternoon and, as she put it, made himself at home. She says he told her he was through with her. She says that she told him that she would shoot him. But he kept coming at her anyway, and then she shot him. That is version number 2, self-defense. He threatened her. She had no choice. Version 3 arrives somewhere between the jail cell and the courtroom. This time, it was a struggle. Both of them reached for the gun. An accident. Nobody's fault, really. Beulah announces version number 4 mid-trial, and I don't know how this works, but the judge allows all 4 defenses. Her story is to be admitted. The jury can decide which one will free her. And version number 4, by the way, is the most audacious of them all. Beulah Annan is pregnant, her lawyers say. Harry Kalstedt knew about it, so he became violent. She acted to protect herself and her unborn child. So I'll let you know right now, this pregnancy never produces a child. What version number 4 does produce is exactly what it was designed to produce. It produces sympathy. It produces headlines. It produces the image of a fragile, frightened young woman backed into a corner by a man who wanted to destroy her and their unborn child. It produces 12 men on a jury who are already halfway there before the first witness is ever called. Chicago in the spring of 1924 is in the middle of what papers are calling the era of the stylish murderess. Women are killing their husbands and their lovers left and right, and at a rate that is making prosecutors openly frustrated because the juries just keep letting them go. The state's attorney's office is so aware of the problem that they try to dismiss potential jurors who admit that they might be swayed by a pretty face. They cannot find enough unbiased men to fill the box. As one man who is excused from jury duty puts it on his way out of the door in the May 23, 1924 edition of the Chicago Tribune, Kalstedt got what was coming to him in a married woman's apartment. But believe it or not, there were a couple of men who were dismissed because they had already decided that Beulah was guilty. Their quotes from that same Chicago Tribune story: "Too damn many women getting away with murder," growled one man, excused from jury service. "I'd have given her the rope, I would," said another as he was dismissed for cause. Well, that's just those silly men. Beulah understands exactly what she has to do if she wants to live a life outside of a prison cell. She's going to use what she's got to get what she wants. She arrives in court every day dressed to the nines, impeccably. Her auburn hair is freshly marceled. Her face is pale and composed. She leans on her attorneys. She sighs. She cries at the right moments. She poses for photographs between sessions. When the prosecutor presses Beulah on the stand, she answers with the composure of a woman who has rehearsed and the defiance of a child who's been asked a question that she finds beneath her. The whole trial is a joke and just ends up becoming a formality, something that has to be done before the county lets this pretty woman walk free. I guess that Harry deserves to have at least the appearance that the court system is trying to seek justice for his murder. But the main focus remains on Beulah being the prettiest murderess ever tried in Cook County. In the midst of the trial coverage, the Tribune publishes a brief about a bet, an even $1,000 against 10 cents that a woman as pretty as Beulah would never be convicted. But there are no takers, because they can't find anyone willing to throw away 10 cents. On May 24th, the jury comes back. Not guilty. The self-defense plea wins her freedom. Now I have to give you this quick side note before I tell you the rest of her story. Yes, it's great for her that she got away from murder, and it's crazy how newspaper after newspaper made light of the death of Harry, totally overshadowing his demise by only talking about how good-looking Beulah was. But Beulah's case, and cases like it, were becoming a real problem in the legal system. Apparently, at the time of the trial, women weren't allowed to serve on juries in Illinois, but lawmakers wanted to change that because they were learning that they couldn't trust men to avenge dead men and find pretty women guilty. The lawmakers felt that women jurors would hold other women accountable. A June 1924 edition of the News in Advance pointed out how men were clearly thinking with the brain in their pants when it came to female defendants, by referencing the case of Catherine Belleuk Malm. She hadn't even killed anyone. She was simply with a man who killed someone during a robbery, and an all-male jury sentenced her to life imprisonment. But she was not attractive. She was called Wolf Girl, and as the article sums it up, quote, her mistake was in being hard-boiled and none too good-looking. Now, back to Beulah. She's free. She sits in the courtroom and bows her head. Al Annan, the faithful husband who has spent everything he has on her defense and sat through every version of Beulah's stories without flinching. Remember, she was upset that the man she was cheating with wanted to break off their affair, and that same man got her pregnant. This is what her husband was hearing in court. That same man now stands beside the jury foreman and shakes his hand. A photographer captures the moment, and Al is smiling. He has no idea what is coming. That smile is about to be wiped from his face really soon. But for now, you can also see that he's not the only one smiling. All of those men from the jury look so happy to be able to pose in this photo beside this beautiful woman. No self-respect. Anyway, back to poor Al. In the hours after the verdict, the papers can't get enough of Beulah. Chicago's prettiest slayer, they call her. The most beautiful woman ever tried for murder, blah, blah, blah. She packs up her rather extensive wardrobe and leaves the county jail for an address unknown. Al is with her. He is still faithful. And how does Beulah repay her faithful husband? By making a public announcement that she wants out of that marriage because he is just too slow for her. Too slow. Those were her words. Literally, the day after he has gone broke, trying to keep this trifling hoa out of prison. Okay, please bear with me because I couldn't just tell you that Beulah said that he was too slow without showing you the article for itself. I had already recorded the video before I was able to find an article where you could see it in print. This is something that I had to show you. And so I'm going to read most or all of this article. I'm not sure. I'm going to read it to you because you have to hear her audacity for yourself. Okay, so this is from the June 24th, 1924 edition of the Owensboro Messenger. And the article is called Beulah Leaves Husband Who Paid Attorneys. Former Owensboro girl who killed lover says Albert, too slow, went in debt to save her. Okay. Beulah Annan, regarded as the most beautiful slayer who ever faced a murder charge in Chicago, and who was recently freed of the charges of slaying the man she loved, has turned against her husband, who stood staunchly by her in her trouble. Now, first I have to point out how this paper is just clearly saying that she killed the man she loved, but we're also talking about her husband, who is a separate person. Okay, it goes on to say, Albert Annan, a quiet, retiring man of 35 with deep, dark eyes and a wistful smile, mortgaged all his possessions and borrowed $2,000 additional dollars so that he could give his wife an adequate defense. He went so far as to sell every bit of furniture in their apartment except the bed, a dining room table, 2 chairs, and a stove. His sacrifice has plunged him hopelessly into debt, and now, after he protected her with everything that human mortal could, she left him, as she states, to become a motion picture star. And, strange to relate, his faith in her has not wavered one iota. So I didn't even know that he had mortgaged everything that he owned for her defense. And this whole thing about Beulah wanting to be a film star, again, it's reminding me of Mackenzie Shirilla, how she just wants to be, this famous model. She and her mom are checking out modeling agencies and everything after she killed those 2 young men. So the similarities are just kind of nuts. But it goes on to say in the section called Too Slow for Her, within 24 hours of the time the not guilty verdict was returned, Mrs. Annan announced to the world that she does not now and never has loved him. He is, she says, too old-fashioned and too slow for her. This is not her first time getting married, and we know that she left her hometown because it was too slow for her, but here we go again. Now this man who's given her like everything is too slow for her. It goes on to say, all he thought about was working and fixing up the house so it would look like a palace. Yeah, because, women, we just hate that when a man just wants to make our home look like a palace. Isn't that awful, girls? Oh my gosh. Okay. So that it would look like a palace. She explained in an effort to justify her position. He didn't care to go to the movies. He said they were too flighty and silly, and he didn't want me to go out to dances. Well, he probably didn't want her to go out to dances because she was screwing other men. That's that's my guess, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, now if he didn't want to have fun, that's one thing. I kind of get it, but if he didn't want her to go out to dances like without him, I understand that. Anyway, she says, naturally, I got tired of it all. Who wouldn't? He always encouraged me to fix myself up so that I would look nice. Yes, and now when I think of it, he used to encourage me to go to the movies, but it was always alone. Okay, well, maybe he was okay with her going out alone. Anyway, she goes on to say, well, I feel more than sorry for Harry Kalstedt. Again, the man she killed. Harry Kalstedt is the man she killed while alone with him in her palatial apartment. While the dead body of her lover lay stretched before her, a phonograph was playing out a silly refrain. Hula Lou, the girl who could never be true. Okay, so I've never heard Hula Lou, but apparently it was a song about her. Okay, so it goes on to describe the night of the crime. Let me see if there's anything I want to read out of here. Okay, I'm going to skip a couple of paragraphs where it says, where it talks about the day after the trial. It says, but the very next day, her sang-froid returned. She announced that she was not going to waste her life with Albert. He was too slow. So she packed up her belongings and started out to make preparations, as she said, to be another Gloria Swanson. Meanwhile, Annan, the man she has regarded as being too slow, has gone back to manage a garage and struggle for years to come in an endeavor to pay the debts he had contracted for her sake. And now I'm going to just skip down to some things that he had to say, some quotes from him. Okay, in the section called Husband Still True, he says, quote, "No one can ever tell me that Beulah has really left me. Beulah is just like a lot of women who like to have a good time, but she will soon realize that there's no place like home. She'll come back all right. The movies are responsible for her silly notions, and I guess I can stand it for a while, her being away, although I don't think I can stand it much longer." Then it says, brushing away the tears, he continued, "You know, this marriage game is far more serious than a lot of young people figure. Both Beulah and myself took solemn vows that it was for better or worse, that we should stick together until death parted us. I intend to keep my part of the ceremony. I'm going to stick to the end. Way down deep in her heart, Beulah loves me, and I'll never love another woman like I do my little Beulah. Watch me, sir." Beulah was just tempted with a lot of wine that afternoon, and the tragedy happened. No, she is coming back. I know it. I can't believe anything bad about my Beulah. That is his quote. The writer ended with this: "Whether there is anyone else ready to take the place of the stolid, faithful one who stood by her in her hour of trouble, she alone can answer. And should she return to him, a faded blossom, faded by the jazz and bright lights, will he welcome her then? Time alone will tell." Now back to your regularly scheduled program. So finally, that summer, the faithful husband comes to the end of what he is willing to absorb. Albert Annan, who financed her defense and stood by her through 4 versions of a murder, and even tried to take the blame for the murder himself, decides he wants nothing more to do with Beulah Annan. He musters up a little dignity and finally walks away. You would think that this would make Beulah happy, but she's not quite done having all of the audacity in the world. Albert's decision to stop waiting around for her to come back to him prompts Beulah to take him to court in August of 1926. She testifies that he deserted her. She tells Judge William J. Fulton that Albert, the man who emptied his savings to keep her out of prison, simply abandoned her without cause. Judge Fulton indicates he will grant the divorce. Walking out of the courthouse, Beulah makes a statement to the press. "I'm through with men," she says. "I will never marry again." Then in January of 1927, just 5 months later, she marries again. The lucky man's name is Edward Harleb. He's a former pugilist, 26 years old, now the owner of a garage at 117 East Chestnut Street. They eloped to Crown Point, Indiana, despite the bitter and completely understandable opposition of his family, because it turns out there's a complication. A woman named Inez White appears in court claiming to also be Mrs. Edward Harleb. Her attorney is looking for Edward to serve him with a bigamy warrant. The man Beulah just married already has a wife. It's kind of what she gets, right? Well, Beulah goes on to divorce him on the grounds of cruelty mere months later in May of 1927. And I'm not going to call this divorce karma for how she left Albert, because this time she gets a payday, a $5,000 settlement. That's roughly $95,000 in today's money. For a 5-month marriage, sounds like she made out like a bandit. When the papers cover the divorce, someone mentions to Beulah that she resembles the actress playing the lead role in a new Broadway play. The play is called Chicago. The lead role is a character named Roxie Hart. Beulah Annan declares that she is anxious to see this Chicago play. Whomever said that Beulah looks like Roxie Hart isn't wrong. The resemblance is notable. The play was written by a woman named Maureen Dallas Watkins, who used to be a newspaper reporter, for the Chicago Tribune specifically. Maureen Dallas Watkins sat through Beulah's trial in 1924. She watched every dramatic display and took every note. Then she went back to her desk at the Tribune and wrote the articles that made Beulah Annan famous. After the trial, she left journalism, enrolled at the Yale School of Drama, and wrote the play as her first assignment there. It debuted on Broadway in 1926 as Chicago. She put Beulah Annan on a stage under a different name and let her live forever. You may have noticed her name as the writer of some of these articles I have shown you in this video. Her play goes on to become a film in 1927 and then again in 1942, this time with Ginger Rogers playing Roxie Hart. And in 2002, the version that is more widely known today, it won the Academy Award for Best Picture. But back to Beulah and back to 1927. After swearing off men after her trial, then marrying Edward Hartlib, and leaving that marriage with a big stack of cash in her hands, she gives love, or something like it, one more try. There is a fourth man. His name is Abel Marcus. The record on her love life goes quiet after that. By early 1928, Beulah is not feeling anywhere near as good as she looks. So she checks herself into the Chicago Fresh Air Sanatorium. She does not check in as Beulah Annan or Beulah Hartlib or Beulah Marcus. She checks in under Dorothy Stephens, which is a name that is close enough to her first married name that it might be the only piece of her original life she's holding on to at this point. It turns out that she has tuberculosis. Not one of the string of men she's left behind comes to support her in this moment. But honestly, why would any of them? Still, she's not alone. At her bedside, there's a reconciliation with her father, who steadfastly refused to help her in any way when he had learned what she had done in Chicago. Beulah May Annan died on March 10th, 1928. She was 28 years old, broke, and completely unknown to the city that 4 years earlier had put her face on the front page and called her its prettiest killer. Her mother, Mary Neal, accompanied her body back to her small town in Kentucky to be buried in the same place that she spent her short life trying to outrun. It had only been 4 years since her name and face were on the headlines of every paper in the big city she loved so much. But here at the time of her death, Chicago, the paper notes, was totally unaware of her passing. Now there's one more person in this story whose ending needs to be told. Albert Annan, Beulah's faithful husband. Well, years after she died, he finally moves on with his love life, and he's got a girlfriend, actually a common-law wife. Her name is Othelia Griffin. In 1934, she is 45 and he is 49. And one Tuesday night in October, after having a little fun with music and alcohol, Chicago police arrived to Albert's apartment to find Othelia nude in a corner, beaten to death. And the music was still playing when the police arrived. Sound familiar? Another similar detail to the Beulah murder story is that Albert was willing to confess to this killing too. Only this time, it seems to be true. There is no one else there to blame. Al confesses. He tells police he fatally beat her during a drunken quarrel. He is booked on manslaughter charges and convicted by a jury. But he gets a second trial. And then a physician testifies that Mrs. Griffin, yes, she is called Mrs. Griffin, and it does seem that Al's common-law wife may have already been someone else's actual wife. What can I say? This man liked women with drama. Anyway, Mrs. Griffin may have died of natural causes, and that the blows that Al served her may or may not have been a contributing factor. That's what the physician said. You know how it goes when you're getting the hell beaten out of you and then those natural causes just pop up and kill you. Well, that testimony works for Al. The judge sets him free. The state determines that there is no legal evidence on which to convict him. Now, I should tell you that Al's attorney in 1934 is William Scott Stewart, the same man who successfully defended Beulah Annan in 1924. So it turns out that a decade after Beulah's trial, being pretty was not the only way to walk out of a Chicago courtroom after a lover turned up dead. Having the right lawyer helped too. At the time of this video recording, Mackenzie Shirilla is in prison. Beulah Annan was not. One major detail that changed between 1924 and 2022 is that in 2022, the person deciding the verdict was a woman. Judge Nancy Russo looked at Mackenzie Shirilla and called her literal hell on wheels. She said that the crash was executed with precision, so she sentenced her to 15 years to life in prison for her crime. In 1924, not one of the 12 men in that jury box was willing to throw away 10 cents on the idea that a pretty woman could be a killer, even though she said she did it. Harry Kalstedt died on Beulah Annan's floor while Hula Lou played on the phonograph, and nobody wrote a musical about him. I could barely find a photo of him to put in this video. Mackenzie Shirilla hopped on Instagram and TikTok before her victims were even buried in their graves, and I hope that their memories are not lost to time like Harry Kalstedt's. Rest in peace to Davion Flanagan and Dominic Russo. There was another woman who left her first husband and son to go chase a more glamorous man and a faster life, but she started out in Chicago, where her daddy's fabulous retail empire was built, the Marshall Field department store. I published a video about how Ethel Field wrecked almost every life she touched, and you can see it here. I'll also leave links to it in the description box and pinned comment. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. My sources for this story are on the screen.